Good day, family. It's Sabelo here. Welcome to Family Empowerment Time, where we sit down as couples and families, get to share some ideas, some experiences, and memories, which in the process help us make the most out of our marriages and families. In our last segment, we discussed on keeping your marriage love tank full. And I want us today to discuss on speaking your spouse love language. Speaking your spouse love language. The other day I took this guy. I wanted to have that adrenaline rush feeling. But unfortunately for me, I ignored one principle. I didn't check the fuel gauge. And therefore, in the middle of nowhere, when I was cruising and thought I was enjoying myself, the guy decided to stop and could not take me anymore. And therefore I had to huff and puff, pushing him up the steep, hoping that at some point in time, somebody was going to come through and assist me get into the filling station and get some fuel. Unfortunately for me, while I was sweating, one of my homies happened to drive by and he realized that Sabelo was in trouble and needed some help. And therefore he parked his car and came to inquire on what was happening. I related what was going on, and fortunately for me, in the boot of his car, he had a 1 liter bottle. So he was able to drive to the filling station, came back with some fuel. I injected it in the tank, and I was able to drive to the filling station, had a full tank, and went to the place where I wanted to go, enjoyed myself, and came back a happy and a fulfilled man because of a homeboy that came through for me. I was huffing and puffing up that steep. I want to request you to allow this homeboy, just as my homeboy came through for me, to also come through for you. Allow Family Empowerment Time to come through for you and assist you. Fuel your marriage so that you're able to go to where you desire to go, enjoy yourself until death shall do you apart. You'll all agree with me that when your love tank is full, you can conquer the highest of mountains. But when it has run empty, even a Mount Hill can become a Mount Kilimanjaro, if not a Mount Everest. And therefore, if you will speak your spouse's love language, you should know what makes her feel loved. Let me make an example with my wife, Slelelwe. She's a quality time girl, and I am a words of affirmation guy. And there are moments where we will do video calls for almost 2 hours. And by the time we come into the end of our conversation, you'll realize that she's a happy girl. The reason she's happy is because I spoke her love language, which is quality time. And of course, I do want to mention that if your spouse's primary love language is quality time, like it is with Slelelwe, that does not mean you ignore the other secondary languages, which could be physical touch, acts of service, words of affirmation, and the giving of gifts. They must also continue to be spoken, but of course the primary one must always be prioritized at all times and at all moments. So number one, speaking your spouse love language is a choice. It is a decision. It is a choice that as a spouse you must make. It cannot just happen, but you must choose to speak your spouse love language. I remember Joshua in chapter 24 verse number 15. at the critical time in the history of the children of Israel. He had to outrightly tell them to choose for themselves who they were going to serve. If serving the God of the Amorites in whose land they were inhabitants was what they thought would work for them, or serving the gods their forefathers served before they even crossed to the land where they were. And he said, "But as for me and my house, I will serve the Lord." In other words, he was saying, this is the choice that I am making for my family. This is the choice that I am making for my marriage. And therefore, as a spouse, you need to choose to speak your spouse love language. You have to choose to love your spouse. You will all agree with me that you can take a horse into the stream, but you can never force it to drink. No matter how much you can bark, no matter how much you can shout, no matter how much you can whip it, if it doesn't want to drink, it will not drink. The nearest thing that you can get, if you persist on beating it or barking and shouting, it could be a fatal kick. Therefore, even when it comes into speaking your spouse's love language, it is you that must choose to speak your spouse love language. There is no amount of counseling that can force and push you to speak your spouse love language. Actually, counseling is just like one going into a consultation in a hospital. They will give him some tablets, and in the prescription they will tell him how many times he's supposed to do those drugs a day. And if he gets home and choose and decide not to take those tablets, there is no way in which he can get help. There is no way in which he can be assisted. Some drugs, they will tell you you must take them for a month. Some, they will tell you take them for 7 days or 10 days. And in some moments, you may not feel the difference in the first or 2 days, but as you consistently and persistently continue taking them, you begin to realize that there is a difference that is coming. The same thing applies even when it comes into speaking your spouse love language. You may not see the difference on the first day, maybe not even on the second day or third day, but as you persistently and continue to speak your spouse love language, you can be surprised at the results that you can get. Of course, you will all agree with me that a marriage can be rescued from the brink of collapse or divorce when couples make the choice to speak each other's love language. When we choose expressions of love, we dissipate every dark cloud of conflict hovering over our marriage, wanting to tear it apart. Therefore, speaking your spouse love language is a choice. And if it is a choice, it is you that must make that choice. Number 2, speaking your spouse love language is an act of the will. You will to love. Remember the other time a leprous man came to Jesus and he said to him, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." And Jesus' response was, "I am willing, be clean." Jesus could have said, "I can't take the children's bread and give it to dogs." But he said, "I am willing." So speaking your spouse love language is an act of the will. You will to love. Meeting your spouse's need for love is a will that you make every day. Every day when you rise up, every day when you hit the floor, you will that I am going to love my spouse. I will love my wife. I will love my husband. And let me tell you, family, when it comes into the issue of speaking your spouse love language, when it comes into loving your spouse, you can't depend on feelings, because feelings are just chemicals that change every 5 seconds. Actually, by the time I get into the end of this segment, my feelings would have changed several times. And therefore, you can't depend on dopamine, you can't depend on estrogen, you can't depend on endorphins, you can't depend on testosterone to love your spouse. It's an act of the will. You must will to love your spouse. Actually, there are 3 major drives of love. There is libido, which is the oomph and the sex appeal that comes with attraction. There is attachment, and there is partner preference. In all these 3, the greatest of them all is partner preference. You chose the spouse, you stay within the house, you acted out of will, you were not pushed by your pastor, you were not pushed by your friends, you were not pushed by your parents. It's unfortunate if you were pushed by them, but at the end of the day, you chose and you will. And speaking his or her love language is what is going to sustain and keep your marriage in a time when marriages are becoming an endangered species, in a time when marriages are ever on the attack. With these few truths, with these few nuggets, I believe your marriage is not only going to bud, your marriage is not only going to blossom, but your marriage is going to bear the fruit that not only you are going to enjoy, but your children are also going to enjoy. And many other young couples and young people are looking up to your marriage as a model, are going to benefit from that. Thank you so much for your time. We love you, we appreciate you. God bless your marriage.